Lisa, we are ready for you to get started. You've got a full hour of our attention. So thank you so much, Lisa, with the AICPA.
Thank you. So I was reviewing the participant list, and it felt like old home week to me. I'm from Kentucky originally. I actually am a graduate of Eastern Kentucky University. I saw a couple people from that school on the attendee list. My sons went to UK, Western, and BCTCS, so I saw some familiar universities there. Then I moved to North Carolina and lived in the Raleigh-Durham area for about 10 years. Now I'm in the Charlotte area, so it was so fun to see all of those school names that have been part of my life for the past umpteen years. So my name is Lisa Simpson. I'm Vice President of Firm Services for the AICPA and SEMA, and in my role, I talk with a lot of practitioners in public accounting primarily about what some of their challenges are. And talent is definitely one of those recurring challenges that I hear a lot about. So when Dean Dorton asked me to speak, I thought, well, this is a great opportunity. So let's see how we can provide some resources to you as you're working in the behind the scenes in the academia to help look at some of the challenges that we're facing and solutions. So with that, I will get started. And this is an eye chart, so trust me, it gets easier from here. But I wanted to start with the view from the public accounting side first, because that's where I spend most of my time. And every other year, we ask practitioners what their top challenges are. The last time we did this was in April of 2022, and you see the kind of the light purple shading there. Many of the responses related to talent. It didn't matter what public accounting firm size was, people were an issue. So whether it was finding staff, developing staff, retaining them, staff compensation, how to reward them, how to maintain connectivity. A lot of firms were still in a hybrid or remote environment at this point. So how can you keep that connectivity and that morale up? And then on the next slide, this is a look at what finance and accounting teams are telling our management accounting side of the organization. We engage with accounting and finance leaders from organizations across the size spectrum, and we compiled some of the responses when we would poll them about what their top challenges are. So this is as recent as April, and you'll see that finding and retaining talent was number one. Digital transformation, number two. Need for new skills, number three. Culture, so another people-related topic, number four. And then recession, inflation, and emerging trends. So a lot of commonality in what the challenges are that we're facing, whether it's on the public accounting side or the management accounting side. I would ask for a show of hands if that resonates, but that won't work well in this environment. So hopefully a bunch of you are nodding your heads and this seems relevant to you. So I thought we would start by talking about some of the pipeline challenges that we're seeing and the hard trends that have been impacting the accounting profession for the last couple of decades. Tighter immigration policies, a lot of this you're going to know because of the seats that you're in your organization. But you know, we know that tighter immigration policies for the past decade or so have limited the number of foreign students coming into the US and staying in the US after they graduate. So that reduces the number of people that were maybe able to stay and work in the profession. Declining college enrollments, we all saw that. I'm sure you all experienced that during the pandemic. We've got a slide that has some hopefully some positive news there, but we know that there were some pretty big dips during the pandemic. Increasing college costs, again, you know that is a challenge for a lot of people who are trying to enter the profession. And then our research indicates that they're just shifting generational expectations. Younger people are asking, do I need to go to college? Do I need to get a college degree, or can I do some gig work, or can I get certificates or badges that maybe don't need that college education? They're also challenging the return on investment. If I spend 4 or 5 years in school, will I get that return that I'm looking for? And then how does all of that wrap up into their work and their life and what their purpose is that they're looking for? We've also seen that the profession's reputation as a kind of a tough way to get in to earning your degree, and then starting salaries and hours worked. A lot of peers that have gone on to public accounting or into management accounting have not had the best things to say about the work-life balance or the culture. So some of that is feeding back into younger people who are deciding what their career path can be. And then a misunderstanding of the profession. I think a lot of people still think that if you're in accounting, you're only doing taxes. And they don't understand the breadth of the work that we do in the accounting profession. So it leads to this misunderstanding. It leads to kind of this pigeonholing. Maybe the green eye shade and the 10 key is what's still out there in the ether in terms of what the profession looks like. I know that's not what it looks like today. I know that there's so much cool stuff going on in the accounting profession, and hopefully we can start countering some of those trends. You've also got declining US birth rates, which ticked up a little bit during the pandemic, but that's going to take a while to get those new babies off into college and then into the workforce. So, a lot of these are hard trends that are going to take a while to overcome. We can't turn the tides quickly, and a lot of them are outside of our control. But what I see when I talk to public accounting firm leaders or people in finance is that they might be thinking that now that the pandemic is behind us, or now that people are returning to the office, now that there's maybe a slowdown looming in the economy, that we're going to see the pendulum that shifted during the pandemic to come back, and that we're going to have people diving back into the profession. I think there is some possibility of that. It is, we often say it's hard to find an unemployed accountant because they are such valued employees to organizations, whether it's in public or management accounting. But again, that's not going to be fast. And there are these underlying societal trends that I think are impacting the accounting and finance pipeline. So we've been doing some research with college business students and recent accounting graduates because we really wanted to understand more about what is dampening their interest in the profession. And I've hit on a lot of these negative perceptions. The second one, business students desire freedom and flexibility. I thought that one was really interesting. That one surprised me because I view accounting as being your ticket to anything you want to do. Accounting is the language of business. Accounting is the bedrock of entrepreneurialism. And with a degree in accounting, the world is your oyster. But what the business students told us in our research is that they see it as a niche and that it's a limiter. So I just thought that was interesting and wanted to share that with you. So you've got the cost of education, but you've also got the cost and the time commitment to take the CPA exam. And our research was primarily focused around moving into the CPA pipeline, not just accounting and finance. So with the CPA exam, you've got the hours to study, you've got the cost of taking the exam. And they told us that that wasn't very attractive to them. That's probably not something we're gonna give on. We feel like the CPA exam needs to have a very high bar in terms of qualifications. The CPAs are serving the public trust, so that's a pretty high bar that we need to keep there. But then next you've got compensation. So back to that return on investment for the cost of the college education. And a lot of accounting a lot of business students told us that they could go make higher starting salaries in other majors. I've got personal experience with that. One of my sons graduated after several years. He wasn't a traditional student, didn't get the best grades, but he got his degree in marketing. And he was making a higher starting salary coming out than a lot of first-year accounting professionals. So we've got some work that has to be done around making the profession more attractive from a compensation standpoint. And then working long hours, again, back to the perception of the profession and concerns about the skill set. It is not easy. And I don't think that any of us anticipate it getting any easier as the world continues to get more and more complex. So that's what our research indicates. If you have any additional thoughts, or if you have other insights from your conversations with students in your colleges and universities, I'd love to hear them. My contact information is at the end of the slides. I'm always open for a chat. I'm always open to connect you with folks from our finance team or from our academic team as well. So just keep that in mind, that I'm here for you and I'd love to talk with you. But we do have some updated trends. And again, I know that you're probably seeing these, the higher ed trends, so this may not be a surprise to you. With the last I looked a couple of weeks ago, I didn't see final spring college enrollments, but when we looked at fall, it had stabilized a little bit from what was going on during the pandemic. So maybe we're seeing a little bit of rebounding in the enrollment trends. From an accounting standpoint specifically, I'd love your thoughts. If you have access to that data and it's something you can share, that would be really helpful for us. We are hearing anecdotally that for a lot of colleges and universities, enrollment in accounting is ticking back up slightly. So again, a little too early to call it a trend, but fingers crossed that we'll see that. During the pandemic, we thought we might see a lot of growth in community college enrollment. But during the pandemic, the trend was actually just the opposite. Big declines in college enrollments in community colleges. And now we're seeing that it is back up and actually over the 2019 levels. So that's higher ed. And then you've got the CPA exam. Again, that's where a lot of our focus is. We continue to see the volume of sections being taken decreasing at the US level, but we're seeing pretty good growth internationally. The CPA exam is offered internationally, India, South Korea, Japan, several other countries, and we are exploring others as well, just to open up the international pipeline. We are thinking that we might see a little uptick in 2023 section takers, and there are 4 sections to the exam, so we look at them in total, because there is a new version of the exam that rolls out at the end of the year. And I've got some slides at the near the end of the conversation to make sure you're aware of what's going on there. So CPA exam, a little bit down, a little bit up. We're not sure where that's going to end up for the year. But if we look at employment, so higher ed, then to the exam, and then to actually employment, we know that starting salaries have gone up substantially in the past 2 years. That word gets around, and that will hopefully start influencing younger people or people who are looking at second careers to take another look at accounting and finance. Again, this is public accounting facing, but that trickles through the entire profession. We also know that right now there are job openings for accounting grads, finance grads in public accounting firms. We are seeing at some of the larger firms in the US that they are either slowing down their hiring or actually beginning layoffs. So that's a message that kind of competes with some of the other messaging that we're hearing. A lot of that layoff in the big firms is around the consulting side, so not necessarily the traditional audit, tax, or client accounting services. So again, trends that we're keeping our eyes on. And we do keep an eye on long-term trends and then short-term to see, because they're all going to impact what the pipeline ultimately looks like. So I mentioned starting salaries, and for me, this was kind of a jaw-dropping moment. This was in the Wall Street Journal. We've given you the source down there. If you look at starting salaries between 2010 and 2022 by category, and those are really broad categories, so I do acknowledge that. You can see that there was substantial growth in salaries paid for tech backgrounds and data science backgrounds, whereas the accounting salaries stayed fairly consistent. Within the organization, we're doing a lot with firms to help them understand the impact that these starting salaries have on the beginning level of the pipeline, and helping them understand the ecosystem, and the competition isn't necessarily what it was 25 years ago or 30 years ago. And so we're asking firms as employers to start thinking differently about the value proposition that they are bringing to accounting graduates. So all of that leads us to a very fast changing workforce. And what does that mean? So when we think about what's changing in the workforce, we think about the pipeline. So top of the funnel all the way down. And we've just talked about that. And then generational changes around what work should be, what work should look like, and why I want to come to work, what the skills are that are going to be needed in the future, diversity, equity, and inclusion as part of every conversation, and then the impact of technology on the accounting and finance profession. So if we start with changing perceptions of work, this was a 2020 or 2021 study from Ernst & Young, and it talks about what the next generation is looking for in their work. I would challenge and say that I think most of us are looking for this in our work. So it may just be that this generation, the Gen Zs and the millennials are looking at just taking a stronger stand about what they expect from work and how they expect work to harmonize with their life considerations as well. So, first one being valued as an individual, and then flexibility. That became especially important during the pandemic, but I think it continues today because so many people were able to really get a glimpse of what life could be like without going into the office every day, without having that commute. I've sat in plenty of traffic in Lexington and in Raleigh, so I can feel that pain. But they also want to know that they belong, that they're part of something, that their work has purpose, and they want to know how that purpose ties in to their community. And then they also want to know that they've got growth opportunities. So again, I don't view any of these as being bad or being demanding. I just think that the next generation is being a little more vocal about how can I get these in my work very clearly, because I need this work part to harmonize with my life. So just some things to think about as you start to recruit talent or retain and develop. So I think this is a good level set for some of the next conversation. So as I was preparing to talk with you, I was doing a little bit of research around what some of the resources are that we have specifically. I'm going to refer to these as governmental organizations. I know that's not the perfect label for colleges and universities. Some of you are private institutions, some of you are state supported. And so I just want to caveat that if you start reading some of these links, it might say governmental, but I think they really do apply in general across the entire profession. So we have this report called a Future of Finance Research Report around talent. And I'd really recommend that you grab that. It should be free and open to you. If not, shoot me a note and I'll make sure you get a copy, or I think Julia has a copy as well. But this report is broken down into recruiting, retention, development, and actually gives you some resources for interviews. So it gives you some sample interview questions along different levels within the organization. So I thought that was really helpful. But if we think about just recruiting, we'll start there. You've got to think about what your competitive advantage is. In the past, my organization's competitive advantage was that we were a 95% remote work organization. During the pandemic, every organization became a remote work organization. And so as an organization, we have to refine our value prop. These are some of the ways that you might think about framing your value prop as you're going to the market to look for accounting and finance talent. From my perspective, training and development should be a really interesting offer that you can include as you're looking to get people interested in open positions within your organization, because you've got access to, you know, a full library of resources and a full library of courses that people can tap into. Lifelong learning is so attractive to a lot of people, especially in this accounting and finance space. So use that to your advantage. Flexibility to the extent that you can. I don't profess to be an expert in what the work structure looks like within your organization, but if you can offer flexibility, I can tell you that that is absolutely a game changer, and it is absolutely a critical recruiting tool. Benefits within your organization might be really strong. You might have the ability to offer an employee reduced college tuition for their children or their spouse. Make sure you're planning that out. Talk about the benefits that you can offer, and then educate about the mission. So most people are going to know your organization, but do they know how the work you do within the accounting and finance function helps support the organization as a whole, and tying it back to serving the, you know, a public good, or, you know, whatever the particular mission is for your organization. And then camaraderie. So back to that bullet point about we all want to feel like we belong, making sure that if your organization is, you know, a welcoming place to come to work, you need to be calling that out. So again, as you're thinking about job descriptions, job placements, interview tactics, social media tactics, be thinking about how you're calling these out. A lot of CPA firms these days are basically taking an approach that they are recruiting every single day, whether or not they've got a recruiter hired or on the job looking for a particular spot, but also just by creating a social media presence that evokes the fun that you're having, the learning that you're having, the flexibility, the benefits of the organization, and getting the people on your team to be showing that on LinkedIn as an example. So recruiting every day rather than recruiting when you have an open spot. So again, you've got the link to that report, and I do hope you'll take advantage of it. I think it's got some great insights for you. So then if we move into the retention aspect of the people that you want to keep it within the organization, it's about those evolving skills. So people want to know, again, that they have the opportunity to grow. And within the accounting and finance space in our organization, this is how we bucket a lot of those skills that we think need to be developed to keep people, you know, advancing in the profession or staying ahead. Upskilling is going to be part of our every day for the rest of our lives, because there's so much change and it's happening so fast. So when we look at skill sets, we bucket them into the technical skills, business skills, people skills, leadership skills, and then digital, all surrounded by our core values of ethics, integrity, and professionalism. So I like this visual. I'm a good visual learner. So I think this kind of helps level set what you should be thinking about as you're building out a development plan for people within your team. So a lot has been talked about the shortage of talent at the entry level. And within our organization, we've been talking for years about how the typical pyramid structure is probably going to be cut at the sides because of the challenges at the entry level. What we see is that firms and organizations are filling in those gaps by using technology, by exploring automation, or outsourcing. Again, outsourcing or offshoring may not be an option for you, but you can think about the core concepts of the ideas behind this. And what we see is that organizations are having to invest more at that middle part, where the business partners provide the key insights and guidance to create and preserve value. So what does that look like? What do those people in the middle, what are their skill sets and what are their competencies? We have what we call a T-shaped professional. So they have a wide breadth of skills. And so that's the business skills, the people skills, being agile and adaptable, leadership skills, and those digital skills that we talked about. But they've also got the deep technical skills, because you still have to be competent at your job to be a key professional. And if we just kind of pull that out a little bit and look broader, for me, when I look at this, what I would really like to prioritize in people I'm bringing into my team and people that I'm going to develop is that ability to be agile, to be thinking ahead rather than just reporting on what's behind us, and the people skills around always being a step ahead of the game. So anticipating what the questions might be, anticipating what data might be needed to make a good decision. And then storytelling, communication. There are probably a lot of people who don't think of accounting and finance professionals as being great storytellers, but I can tell you that it is key to helping add value across the organization. If you can, instead of just presenting the numbers, can you communicate what the story is behind those numbers? I trace it back to my roots in public accounting when I was doing bookkeeping work, and I would present my client with the financial statements, and I'd say, here you go. And they would file them and never look at them, and I would never talk to them about them. So now with dashboarding and KPIs and trailing metrics, you have the ability to really add value to what the numbers say by telling the story. So I would really prioritize that. And then digital skills, as you're looking for people to bring into your finance teams, looking for someone who is tech savvy, or at least is interested in learning and is eager to explore how new technologies can impact your organization. So we've been asking our finance and accounting conference attendees what the top 5 skills are that they think are needed for the future. So we got 9. Maybe we're not good at math, but I think these are really helpful. And they tie back to that T-shaped professional that I showed you before. So first of all, obviously you got to have the technical skills, but then strategic thinking and critical thinking, collaboration is a big one. Being tech savvy, having that agile mindset, not being afraid of not always having the right answer, but working towards something, learning, pivoting, and then trying again. Leadership and sense making, communication and storytelling, and business acumen. I think data analytics, I was surprised to see it at number 9. If I were working for you and I had access to all of the curriculums that you do, I'd be spending a lot of time in data analytics and communication. But that's just me. I'm a nerd. So I was looking through some of the reports that I'll give you links to here in just a minute. And this one really struck me. I was a chief financial officer for several organizations before I joined the association about 11 years ago. And the CFO was oftentimes viewed as the person who just said no. Doesn't matter what the question was, doesn't matter how big the ask was, the answer was no, we're not going to do that. And to really add value in finance positions now, we have what we've termed the chief future officer. So not finance, but future, and helping the organization move from having a rear view mirror, what's behind us, to a forward-looking view, not just focusing on what does something cost, but what's the value that it brings. Not just looking at hindsight, but being very strategic and looking forward. And then not being a scorekeeper, not just focused on tangibles and not just focused on past data, but what could be down the road, just around the corner, using the data that you have at your hands. So hopefully that resonates. Again, I can't see your hands, can't see your head shaking, but I'm sure many of you have been called CFO, maybe early in your career. So hopefully some of these data and value add resources will help move you to a better kind of no. So diversity, equity, and inclusion is incredibly important to the future of the profession. We need to open the funnel more and raise awareness of the opportunities in the accounting profession. We are working with one of our affiliated organizations called the Center for Accounting Audit Quality, CAQ. And in January of 2022, so we're already a full year in, they launched a very impressive social media campaign focused on increasing awareness, primarily with Black and Hispanic students. It is designed to appeal to students, it's highly visual, and here's just an example of what it looks like. So again, very creative, highly visual, and it is fed through TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and the channels where a lot of younger people are hanging out. Again, the whole goal of this one is to get people earlier in their school careers interested in exploring what accounting offers. There's a lot of money behind this campaign that's being funded through some of the top accounting firms in the US, and the AICPA, some state societies are really helping push this multi-year campaign that is designed to attract ethnic minorities into the profession. We have a lot of other resources around getting young people into the profession. This is just one example that I wanted to give you. And if you are looking for how to recruit diverse talent, we have some resources for you as well. Again, this title is promoting equity in government entities, so it may not resonate immediately, but I think it's going to give you some really good tips on how to engage with affinity organizations around particular minority status to help you get access to a broader pool of diverse talent. We work very closely with a lot of these organizations. One of the committees that my team manages is the National Committee on Diversity and Inclusion, and we work with NABA, the National Association of Black Accountants, the Ascend, Latin and Filipino CPA or accounting profession. So a lot of good work going on within those affinity organizations, and they're always looking for ways to help identify good employment opportunities for their members as well. So some good resources for you there. And then if we move into technology, because, again, thinking about the changing workforce, technology is impacting all of us. On the public accounting side, we are seeing firms who are leveraging robotic processing automation to get rid of a lot of the manual work that goes on within a firm. Not sure if that can translate over to your organizations, but anything you can do to help automate and remove some of that lower value work will help your team members feel like they're doing more of the work that's important, work that matters, and where they can see their efforts making a difference. Again, we have a whole section of resources for you, and these are really interesting reads that will hopefully give you some ideas on the role of the finance team in looking at technology solutions, and the role of the finance team in helping drive out the data, the insights that are then going to help inform the conversations, the strategic conversations of the organization. So again, you should have access to all of these, and some really interesting reads there, I think, for you. Then I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about changes to the CPA exam. As you're going back and talking to your colleagues who are in the accounting programs and in the business school, these are some pretty exciting things that we wanted to make sure you could take back to your teams there. Effective January 1, 2024, we are rolling out a new CPA exam model, and it basically keeps 4 sections of the CPA exam, but it changes what's in those sections. So now, beginning January 2024, you'll have a core, and that core is 3 sections. It's accounting, auditing, tax, and it's got some technology systems and controls built into the core. But then a CPA candidate can pick from a discipline. So that discipline could be tax compliance and planning, business analytics, or information systems and controls. So it helps entrance into the profession identify maybe what a particular interest area is, and lets them dig into that section as they're studying for the exam. So the exam still has 4 sections, the core, and then the participant gets to choose one discipline. They still come out at the end with 1 CPA license. It's not a CPA-tax. It's not a CPA-information systems. It's just 1 CPA designation once they meet the other qualifications. So we've got a great website that most of your accounting professors should know about, but I just never want to take anything for granted. So I've given you a link there, and we have some good information around how to map the old CPA exam sections to the new CPA exam sections. So again, all of this changes January 1. There are some transition rules so that people who have started taking the exam before January 1 can have a little bit longer to pass all 4 components. But you'll see that most of the change is in this VEC category that's now broken out into the disciplines that a candidate can choose from. So business analysis, information systems, and tax compliance. From our perspective, this change reflects the reality of accounting today. It allows people to dig in a little bit deeper into a discipline that they're interested in. It recognizes the impact of technology, how integral technology is to the accounting profession and finance roles going forward. So we are excited to see the new exam roll out. And that's one of the reasons a lot of people will try to get their CPA exam finished up before the end of the year, because this is the devil they know, and they want to finish up with the devil they know rather than the one that they don't know just yet. So we'll see how that all plays out. I also wanted to make sure that you know that the AICPA offers a free faculty hour. And again, if you could spread the word back when you are talking with your accounting professors and department heads, this is a great way for your educators to stay engaged with our academic support team. There's actually a webcast tomorrow that talks about some of the changes in the exam and helps the academic side of the profession make sure that they know what's going on with the CPA exam and what the changes are, how they can help the students with the changes. So again, that's free, and we would encourage you to share that with others. I asked our academic team for some other resources that you could share. So I wanted to make sure that you've got links for our academic resource hub. We've got over 300 resources in there for accounting educators, and you can do that you can search in there by class level, search in there by topic. We have an academic update newsletter, a LinkedIn group, and then faculty are able to access our This Way to CPA resource site free. Lots of good information in there to help educators when talking with students about the accounting profession and the benefits of the profession. So with that, I promised my contact information. So it is there. And then I'm happy to take any questions or dig into a topic a little deeper. I apologize, my cat snuck into the room. So hopefully you can't hear her too loud. She sounds a lot better than the fire alarm that was going off before the session.
Lisa, we do have a couple of questions here.
Okay.
Starting salaries have not increased at the pace of other in-demand careers. How does the salary trajectory compare to those same career paths?
It's a great question. So typically in the profession, the payoff comes later in the career progression. Whereas let's take a technology opportunity. You might come out of school with a starting salary, and you might also have the opportunity for, let's say you're working for a publicly traded company or a startup, you might have the ability to get some skin in the game, get some equity. And the typical public accounting model hasn't offered that. So we are working with firms to say your game needs to change a little bit. We need to move some of the compensation earlier into the career and identify other opportunities to make the career rewarding earlier rather than waiting 35, 40 years when you're ready to retire and then you get a good payout.
We've got a couple more.
Okay.
We've got one from Elizabeth in the room.
Okay. Hey, Lisa, thanks for being here. I don't want to put you too much on the spot here. But more and more, I think accounting firm owners, leaders are unhappy with the 150-hour rule. We really think it is preventing people from joining the industry. And we also don't know that there's much value to it. I know the AICPA thinks it's not the time to switch from it because regulators have their eyes on us. Is there any other insight you can share on this issue?
Sure. And not to put me on the spot, is that how you opened that question, Elizabeth?
I did. Well, it's I know that the AICPA was years ago. I was on council for like a minute, and I know that there was a joint project with NASBA doing research on it, and then it just kind of stopped. And I do know that one reason is because the regulators, and we don't want it to look like we're not self-regulating ourselves, like we're lowering the standards of our profession. We don't want to send that message.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That is one of the main concerns. And we actually have a slide that we've been using the past few months that has a lot of the negative headlines. And we do anticipate that there's going to be increased scrutiny on the accounting profession. So you've got two issues. You've got the regulatory aspect, and will the profession be subject to criticism for lowering the bar if we roll educational requirements from 150 down to 120? But you've also got some operational challenges within the profession. We are one of the very few professions who enjoys basically license mobility. So again, I'll use my example. I moved from Kentucky to North Carolina. I took a 8-hour ethics class in North Carolina, and my Kentucky CPA license was granted reciprocity in North Carolina. That took about 10 years to get accomplished nationally. There's still Hawaii, I believe, is a state that doesn't allow what's called individual mobility. There is a NASBA opinion that, let's say one state were to roll back to 120, the CPAs licensed in that state are no longer deemed substantially equivalent, and they would not therefore have that mobility. The reason that matters is because we're in an increasingly mobile world. So right now, I'm in Florida, and I've been working in Florida for a few weeks. If I held myself out, if I had a business card, if I signed my name as CPA, but I didn't have substantial equivalency in Florida, I didn't have that individual license mobility, then I could be sanctioned by the Florida Board of Accountancy. It gets really complex, and it would really impact the ability of CPAs to practice across state lines. So if you had a client, let's say that you just sat in your office in Lexington, but you were working on an employee benefit plan audit in, let's say, Tennessee. But because you're working virtually for that client, you're still subject to Tennessee requirements if we don't have that individual firm mobility or that individual mobility. So that amplifies dramatically when you look at how many CPAs are in a firm and what the firm would have to do to keep up with everyone's licensing requirements in different states. I've had conversations with practitioners who were working in public accounting pre-mobility, and they had to have licenses in 12 different states, and they had to keep up with 12 different sets of CPE requirements. So it was quite the challenge. It was inefficient, it was expensive, and there you could accidentally trip into a violation. So that's one of the challenges of trying to roll back. It could take another 10 years to get that national mobility that we enjoy now. We have launched a pipeline acceleration plan to address some of these challenges, because again, it is more than just 150 hours. Our research tells us that that's generally around 7th in the list of things that impact someone's interest in becoming a CPA. That's not entering accounting, but actually becoming a CPA. So just a little distinction there. So we are working on proposals to help provide some structure around the additional hours that a candidate might need if they got through 4 years of college with 120 hours, but they need 150 for licensure. We're working on a program to help lower the cost for that, still offering, not restricting anyone's ability to go get a master's, but giving them a way to meet their hours requirements in a different way. We are working with accounting firms. My job every day is to work with accounting firms on assessing whether or not their business model is attractive to young people and what needs to be done to increase interest and awareness of the profession. We are looking at, we've been sponsoring some legislation to help open up Section 529 funds so that they can be used to pay for CPA exam and CPA exam prep costs. We are looking at we've worked with NASBA and state societies and state boards to expand the window of time for a CPA exam candidate to complete all 4 parts. So once you complete the first part, right now you have 18 months to complete all 4 parts. We got a lot of feedback from many stakeholders that 18 months wasn't enough, So NASBA has recently announced that they have given the authorization for state boards to open up the Uniform Accountancy Act to open up the rules in their state so that you can have up to 30 months to pass all 4 parts. So that's another piece of the pipeline, or of the hurdles that we're trying to kind of clear out, is to give people more time to wrap up all the parts of the exam. There are a whole bunch of other components of the program. And again, it's called our Pipeline Acceleration Program. I'm happy to share a link with Julia if you want to share that with others after the call.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa. I think that is our last question. You were fantastic. Today was fantastic. That does conclude our Higher Education Training Day, Current Issues and Trends. We are so appreciative of everyone who was able to join us virtually and in person. As a reminder, CPE certificates, it's going to take a little while to process those virtual people. So please expect to see those within the next 2 weeks. I'm going to send out Lisa's updated slides as well as any other information. You can also expect to receive a recording of all the presentations so you can reference all the information afterwards. And then last but not least, we hope everyone has a wonderful Memorial Day weekend and a wonderful summer. Thank you so much.